to do that. It's like you're walking into my living room and we start from there. There is no concept of a preparation or anything. And actually, I feel funny. Well, I mean, if you start and then we've already had a discussion, we've already said hi. And again, I said, hi, Eleni, thank you for coming in. But I did not say it before that. So thank you, Eleni.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, Vikram, for inviting me. First of all, I was looking forward to it. I love these chats you organized, and I really wanted to discuss with you, meet you better, and share my experiences as well.
But Eleni, do you actually end up watching them? Because obviously they're long. They're really long.
Not all of them, but I've watched a few of them and I really enjoyed them.
Okay, so we'll get your feedback on those discussions, whatever you watched. Because look, the idea is that it's a casual conversation, and it can go wherever. Like you asked me that any questions and all that, let it go wherever it goes. We're not taking it into any direction.
Why not?
So, I mean, there is no concept of any pre-decided questions. I don't even know what those questions will be. I don't even know that. Maybe I should have a basic one. Okay, Eleni, how's the weather? Where are you right now? Cyprus or Greece?
Oh, at the moment, I'm in Greece. I'm flying soon to Cyprus. I'm going back and forth. The weather is okay. Not too sunny, not as sunny as I would like to.
But how do you manage this? Cyprus, Greece?
I mean, it's close. The flight is an hour and a half. And even when I am within Greece or Cyprus, I'm moving a lot back and forth. For a large period of my life, I was living through a suitcase. So I had to pack suitcases again and again. But I enjoyed it. It allowed me to meet more people, have more experiences, promote mediation more. So it was by choice.
Then how did you handle the lockdown after getting used to traveling so much? Honestly, how did you manage that?
It was a shock. It was a shock at the beginning because I wasn't used to being confined in four walls and doing everything online. I mean, thank God we have Zoom and we have technology, but at the same time, it's not the same thing as meeting people live, face to face. So it was a shock at the beginning for the first few months, but then I got used to it and it was a nice change for me because I had the time to calm down, take some rest, arrange my affairs better until we start traveling again.
Yeah, because I'm sure if you're traveling so much, I mean, just the fact that you have to sit for a few days also must be long. And how long did you have your lockdown?
Well, we had different lockdowns. The first one was a couple of months. The next one was 3 months. The next one was 2 months. So there were many lockdowns and short breaks in between. But even when traveling and moving around was allowed, with all the restrictions and the concerns, it's not as easy as it used to be. And many of my colleagues, friends, clients, they prefer doing things online now just because of COVID.
Because for me, I'm telling you that because of this online world, I don't want to go back to the other one. I really don't. After finding this, okay, maybe because I'm also spending a lot of time in the promotion of mediation. So definitely all that travel time and everything taken care of, I think that I've been able to use here. I think that's been the good thing that's come out of it.
To be honest, I would like a hybrid situation. So it's much more convenient to do certain things online now, and it's way faster to organize meetings. I'm actually meeting my colleagues from all around the world more often online because of that. But I would love to see people live from time to time. So something in between, I guess.
Okay, I'll tell you what my hybrid is. I go in the morning, I play my golf. So that's my physical world.
Nice.
For me, the mediation world is totally an online world. And I'm really happy with that because, look, even you're connecting with people all over the world now, okay, you might travel to a few places, but definitely you can't meet everyone. But this way, all the time, I mean, you can connect with whoever you want, wherever they are. So now this whole concept of that physical distance, that concept is gone now. I'm asking you, I know, okay, now you're in Greece, but for me, it's not Greece. It's just there on my screen. So so there's no concept of borders or anything like that. So that's also a good thing. We've gone beyond borders.
Yeah, we have. And it wouldn't have happened so quickly if it weren't for the pandemic. So in every problem, there is an opportunity, as we say.
Yeah, exactly. That, and I think we've at least for mediation, I think there's not an issue. I actually find it a lot easier for people also. I think it's a lot easier because it is a better. I feel it's more informal for them wherever they're sitting instead of that room concept of it. I think it's been a very good thing. I think it's and yeah.
Yeah, at least for those of us who have access to the internet, because I'm fully aware that it's not the whole planet. We're privileged to have access to the internet. And for a big percentage of people around the world, it has been a struggle because of the lack of proper access to the web.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's definite. That's an issue. I also see that issue with some people because I mean connectivity. I don't know, whatever. Okay, these companies are going to get their act together. Maybe it takes their time. Of course, there's lots of things to be done. You have to lay those cables and everything. But at least, okay, maybe maybe in an year or two, there should be better connectivity with remote places.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Because I really want to reach out to the villages in every part of the world, and we should be able to. I don't know whether you've been listening to that, but I've been saying now that let's identify these people in villages who are trusted by people already. Let's bring them out and let's let people talk about them, because then they will be able to relate to the whole concept much better. Because that whole technical mediation as some rocket science discussion, it's not helping. It hasn't helped. It's in terms of the process, it's something that people know about. It's not that they don't know about it, which is what that there's a symposium that I organized in August and September. That was the whole theme of that that people might not be familiar with the word, but they're familiar with the process. And so it was called mediation in our culture and traditions. So idea was for people, let's connect them with that. I don't know how you look at it.
I agree. And especially in smaller places, in villages, as you mentioned, there is always a wise person that everyone trusts on within big families. And if these people know the word and they know that they can actually do that process formally, they can be the ambassadors of that process. We need more ambassadors in the little corners of the world.
Exactly what I've been saying. I need that clip. What you just said, we need to, now you have to say this in Greek also. We have to, this is all we have to put out. That's it. This is it. Whatever way it has to go out through WhatsApp messages or wherever else, this is the message that has to be sent out. And I'm telling you, my job will be done. I mean, the way I look at it, it hasn't taken off. I mean, in terms of in that formal structure, only because I think the people who come out and say that, okay, let's do that 40-hour training and let's become mediators, that I think is the issue that I face. But I mean, you can't do that. And actually, the problem is you'll hear me saying this all the time, that you'll get sick of me saying this. But I don't know. It's as simple as that you don't make mediators in 40-hour factories. It's as simple as that. I mean, that one wise, you finish, then I'll talk to them about the wise people, because those wise people are there because people have identified them over time. Their conduct, their whole way of going about it, they've seen that person and they know about that person because of that. It's not every old person is not considered that wise person. There are only select people, so there is something to that.
I've been training a lot of people in mediation, because since we have new laws on that and was inserted in our legal system, there's been a big interest from lawyers and other professionals to become mediators. And you're right, for some people it's natural, it's who they are. For others, even when it's not, I think you can be trained to be a mediator, but only if you really want to become a mediator, because it's not something you do, it's who you become, it's who you are. So if you don't work on cultivating all these skills as a person, then you cannot do it as a job. It's not a skill you can just do at work and then go at home and be a different person.
Again, I'm telling you, I really feel that I will always keep repeating this aspect. But for me, that heart, soul, and spirituality being a part of mediation and mediators, that is something I still feel that in terms of the mediation that I see the way it should happen. I mean, I'm saying, obviously, like you said, there are certain skills and you might be able to, through a training, maybe tell them about these things, and they might consciously try to look at those things and I'm sure mediations will happen that way. Not a problem. I'm sure that will happen. But I'm just saying, for me, the concept of mediation being something which people use actually want to use will be with people who bring that whole thing, the whole package. And that package for me, like I said, heart, soul, and spirituality will be something which will connect people with the process, and which is how they are connected today also. It's all these factors are looked at when like you said, the wise people, they bring all that. Then there's that whole energy concept that I keep talking about now, which and all we're bringing all that is something which is there. You can't put it into someone.
Well, I'm not sure if you cannot put it, but he needs to be open to receive it. Well, the feedback we have from many people who come to get trained is that I don't do it just to become a mediator. I do it because I've heard that it's going to be good for me. I'm doing it because I want to develop myself. So I guess that if people are open to accepting that, you can train someone to work on these skills. I believe there's a little bit of these skills in everyone. Or perhaps I'm too optimistic. I don't know. I'm too positive.
I think you're absolutely right. There are certain aspects that people will pick up and they will use them in their life. And by itself, because of that, maybe disputes might not happen, because at the first stage, they might be able to, okay, let's look at it this way. I'm sure that will work. But I'm just saying that there are certain things which, for me, I call this my dispute resolution revolution. I'm just saying, let's just resolve people's disputes, and they use mediation. And once they use it, they will definitely change the way they go about even their relationships, their communication. They will change that by even experiencing a mediation. So experiencing it is definitely important. And how they do it, like you said, in a training, if you see what's happening. So in terms of being able to appreciate the process, I think that is something that will come.
And the earlier you do that, then the earlier someone in his life, someone sees mediation and how it works, then the better they will be able to incorporate it into their lives. That's why we try to work a lot with students, because once they see it during their studies, when their minds are still open to learning new processes, then they will be able to do it as practicing professionals, lawyers, business people, and even in schools. I mean, if students see peer mediation and school mediation at a young age, they will be open to that process when growing up.
But in the school also, I am still pushing it from the same way. I'm saying identify those people. Students identify those people whom they feel they can trust to resolve a dispute. They identify them and just give them the space to do it. Just remove the concept of anyone, even a teacher or anyone, overseeing the whole thing also. Just let them be. And I'm telling you, this is not so easy. I know that I've been, whenever I do get a chance, I speak to students, and the feedback that I get, that they're actually not wanting to help resolve a dispute because they're scared of the teacher. They will say the teacher will not like it, which is something which I feel again, this whole colonization aspect, that their authority figure and everything, all that has to change. I mean, we have to, it's a full conditioning of the mind that has taken place. You're saying something.
But I'm hearing that from different countries, that more and more ministries of education have appreciated the value of peer mediation, and they're introducing programs in different countries. So hopefully in the next decade, we'll have these programs all around the world.
Yeah, because for me, there are two parts of it. One is the peer mediation, where they train them on basics about what conflict management, nonviolent communication, make them try to appreciate the other person and how you should deal with the other person, all that part of it. So there's one part of it comes under peer mediation, but I have an issue with that, because for me, peer mediation means actually sitting down and resolving a dispute. When they feel empowered enough to do that they can actually resolve a dispute, that is general training, which is, and a lot of people are required to do that training. There will be psychologists and there will be sociologists, or whoever might have to get into it, let them do that. But actually the children to see a dispute being resolved and actually sitting down and experiencing that is where mediation will take off. Because I tell you, look, it is nice to tell people, be good human beings. Very nice. Be good human beings, deal with everyone nicely, live in a peaceful world. Damn good. We should tell them that. But can you sit down and resolve your dispute? Wait, can you do that and experience that aspect of it? That is what the process is. It's not as simple as what people might say, oh, let's all be nice to each other. No, when a dispute comes in, a lot of factors come in with it. So are you being able to look at it from the resolution point of view? That's why I keep saying that for me, it's not even conflict resolution revolution. For me, it's only dispute resolution, because I want them to experience resolving a dispute. Once they get that feeling, dispute has been resolved, then the larger things will happen for them themselves. They will actually be able to take that, like I said, they'll take from that process and then use it in their lives. They will do that. So I'm saying that experiencing that aspect is important.
What you say is indeed important, because sometimes even us as mediators, when we promote the process, we fall into the trap of promoting it as an easy and friendly and nice process, but it's a hard process. And when we promote it like that, and they come to mediation and they realize that they need to make tough decisions and make concessions and listen carefully to the other side, they are stressed. So we need to help people understand this is going to be a tough but very, very fruitful process. And if you're engaged, you will get the maximum results. So when they see it and they believe in it, then they come back again. We see that with lawyers, because in Greece, we have the presence of the lawyer is mandatory during the mediation if you want to have an enforced agreement, an enforceable agreement. So it's the mediator, the parties with their lawyers. And the lawyers who brought clients and they saw the process working, they keep coming back, bringing more and more clients. So once they see it works, they come back.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think main thing is for people to just experience it. But this aspect of lawyers being required for it, what do you feel about that? Do you think it's a good concept?
Well, it has been quite controversial. I mean, lawyers are mandatory when you want to have an enforceable agreement. So if you want to mediate between two neighbors that they don't need an enforceable agreement, they just need to resolve a small issue, then you don't need to follow a formal process. But I've seen that this concept of having an enforceable agreement is really appealing to both the citizens and the lawyers. They want an enforceable agreement which has the same validity as a court judgment, because this means that their dispute is officially over and no one can file a lawsuit on the same matter before a court in the future. So they want that. And because of the fact that the mediator may not necessarily be a lawyer, they feel safe when they have their lawyers with them who help draft the agreement. And again, I'm talking about enforceable agreements, not just simple disputes between friends, colleagues, etc.
Because I'm on the other end of it. I'm saying that it has to be something where it has to be left totally to the parties. I mean, definitely in legislation, there has always been some way. Maybe you try to, in India, there's a bill which has been put in parliament, which is still not passed, luckily. But the fact that the state comes into it in some way or the other, you make a mediation council. I'm just saying, let's not complicate this. Let us trust that it is, the parties have some sense in it. Again, this comes from colonization, that the state or the judiciary in some way has to be involved in people's lives when disputes come in. I'm saying, why do you want to get into it? They are smart enough. It is their dispute. And it's not a process where they are stuck with the person. It is not something they can't walk out of. It is totally, I mean, you can't limit the people that they choose as mediators. You're actually, in a way, getting into their homes. This is where you have to stay away from that. The state and the judiciary should be able to say that, look, we have to have a role to play in certain areas, but we can't get into people's houses and decide whom they want as a mediator and how the process has to happen, who has to sit in the process for enforceable settlement. Yeah,
that's a very big cultural issue, and it has to do with the legal culture as well of each country. So what's interesting is that in my two countries, we follow two different legal systems. In Cyprus, we follow the British legal system, the common law system, as in India, more or less. And in Greece, we follow the continental one, which is similar to the French, the German. In that system suffers from over-regulation. So in Greece, every single thing is regulated, sometimes over-regulated. And people learned, I guess, to feel safe in that context, although the life of the lawyer is a nightmare. It's very difficult to read new laws every day. I guess that the fact that there is a law makes people feel safer, because that's how they've learned to work, especially when it comes to disputes that lawsuits could be filed. But because I work a lot with technology companies with their internal disputes. So when co-founders or co-workers fight and they disagree. And in these mediations, we don't need an enforceable agreement. We just need to resolve the conflict right here and now, so that the company can move on and go to the next stage. And this is an informal process without lawyers, without anybody else than the parties and the mediator. It's like a workplace mediation, let's say. And in these processes, when parties are not worried that the lawsuit can be filed, and they are only interested about their future and their company's future, then they don't care about formalities. They just want to resolve their dispute. So I guess it has to do with the dispute as well.
I don't know, because I'll tell you, the difference I think also comes from the size of the country, because you have what you say about 10 million people in the entire country. So things might be, I'm not saying that that is maybe is that the correct way to go about it, but it is a different reference point. And then you have India on the other end, where my city has 2.5 times the population of the country. So, and what happens is that when countries have to legislate, and I'm saying this whole colonization aspect, that the state and judiciary somewhere have to fit in those senses, they will take up from Greece. Oh, in Greece this happens. Greece, it happens, it's a different context. Don't compare that.
It is.
And this is where the issue starts, and then something is picked up and put into a totally different context, in a different place, where the whole dynamics are different. I mean, imagine there are 1.3 billion people and 60% are in rural areas. Are you really going to be able to in any way even look at the fact that, are you going to, you say you have to look at accreditation of mediators, all those aspects. Where are you going to get those numbers from? Who are those trainers? Do we have a worldwide concept of a national concept of who the trainers, and does everyone know what that whole process is all about? There's so much around it. It's not that it's so simple that, okay, someone goes and tells someone this is how you have to do it, now you're certified, go. No, there is much more about it. It's not as simple as it seems. So then those issues start coming up, and then, like I told you, that we have a bill in parliament right now. The point they're trying to regulate, I mean, of course it is, for me, any regulation is over regulation, but in this case, this is anyway quite a lot of regulation. And not even considering the fact that there are people sitting in places, in parts of this country, where they don't even, I mean, for them to go to a lawyer, first of all, is a big thing. On top of that, going to a court, and that too, we have different levels of court, like every country. But that those levels of court would be maybe 1,000 kilometers. The next level might be 1,000 kilometers from a person's village. The other one, like the Supreme Court of India, is about maybe 2,500 kilometers away from someone's village. The whole context changes. But at that point of time, when legislation is happening, oh, what is so-and-so country doing? What's happening there? Let's pick up. And there are, I'm telling you, I keep saying there are vested interests, and there are people with self-interest. For me, judiciary has self-interest. They just want to clear their backlog. They don't care a damn about how the things are going to happen, who's going to suffer from it, and whether people want that process, not want it, but let us push it because we are inefficient. That's where I have a problem with.
I've never been to India. I tried a couple of times, but it was the pandemic and all that, so I never managed to. So perhaps in the future. But the numbers that you have in India are incomprehensible for us. As you said, Greece is 1 million, 10 million, Cyprus is 1 million people. So we're tiny countries compared to India. And of course, you cannot copy and paste a system from one country to the other. You can get inspirations from other systems, and you see which of the elements that another country has applied, you can also adopt and apply. For example, Greece, for many years, well, we had the traditional mediation way in some villages, but not an official process. And we had the first law on mediation in 2010, only 12 years ago. There was nothing before that. And the only reason we had this mediation law was because there was a directive from the European Union that said that all member states need to recognize cross-border mediation agreements, at least. And then from 2010 until 2018, even though all mediators were struggling to inform the public, we were all very passionate about it, organizing events, going to different places, chambers of commerce, etc. The number of mediations was actually very disappointing because it was something new in the legal system. And people were worried, should I trust that? It's something new, I don't know it. So what we did in 2019, around 2019, is that we saw that Italy, which is a neighboring country with a lot of similarities with us, had implemented the so-called mandatory first session mediation. And we implemented it as well. We didn't copy the exact same law that Italy has. We adapted it to the Greek legal system with a few twists, but it's actually it has actually increased by a lot the number of mediations. And someone would say that enforcing people to go to mediation will not work in my country. And I guess it depends on the specifics of each country. But in countries where access to justice is not very expensive, as in Greece, and people got used to go to court for minor issues, they are over litigious. I guess that forcing people to go to mediation and meet the process, as you said, for the first time and see if it can work, it can convince them that they should try it. So through this law, we don't force people to find an agreement, but we force them to meet the process. And that has changed the number. But what works in Greece might not work in another country. And as you said, there is always the question of quality, of how many trained mediators there are, etc. So we need to check the situation on a country-by-country basis. And sometimes on a region-by-region basis, because even in the same country, not all regions are the same.
Because what I've been saying is that, look, this attempt of trying to go through the forcing, in a way, okay, you're forcing people to do it, but who's forcing them to do it? The judiciary is forcing them to do it. And I keep saying that you are inefficient. You are inefficient. Where there's efficiency in the judiciary, mediation is not taking off, which is part of that symposium. There's Chuck, he's from Israel, but he lives in Germany now. And he was comparing the two. He says Germany, the judicial system is so efficient that mediation has not developed. So if you can, I'm saying that if mediation doesn't work, maybe it doesn't work, it's a bad process, it's not required. Okay, not a problem. You judiciary concentrate on making yourself efficient. Don't look at mediation. It's a different process. Just leave it out of the picture. Look at yourself, see what you have to do for the people, but making this an easy way out. Okay, let's try and clear the backlog through putting them through mediation. You are not supposed to tell them that.
Well, in Greece, this did not happen. So it did not come from the judiciary. In certain countries, the cost of litigation is covered mostly by the state budget. So there is a huge burden in the state budget when people are overusing the judicial system without a purpose and without a reason, and for disputes that could easily be resolved outside the court. So the concept of forcing, I don't like the word forcing, of telling people that you must experience this process before going to the court, did not came from the judiciary, at least in Greece. I don't know in other countries how it works. To be honest, it actually has results. So as you said, people meet the process, and once they meet it, at least a percentage of them adopts it.
Oh, definitely. I think I'm saying that people must obviously try the process, and that's part of it. But I'm looking from the other point. Why I'm saying that through the judiciary, look, finally the parliament is going to pass the laws. I mean, judiciary, that part of it, that it has to be part of the judicial process, will be part of a law which obviously the judiciary will not pass. It will be passed by the legislature for sure. But the judiciary wanting to play a role in it, like I'm telling you, I give you the example of the bill that has gone into parliament. The Chief Justice of India made a committee to look into a law for mediation. I'm saying, look, there are various kinds. Say you have allopathic doctors and you have Ayurveda. Now, allopathic doctors to sit together and say we are going to make a committee to look at how Ayurveda is going to be regulated. I don't know. I mean, Ayurveda, I'm sure you know what Ayurveda is. Okay, I'm saying, okay, this is that India. I mean, it comes from India, the whole concept of natural ways of healing, and a lot of factors there. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen any of the Ayurvedic products.
I've seen it as a healing. Yeah, I've seen. We even have some people practicing that in the Mediterranean, but I've never experienced it myself. So as a name, I know it, but I don't know exactly how it works.
Okay, so I'm just giving, why I'm giving you that analogy is because there are different ways of going about healing or curing diseases. It's a different concept. I mean, you go to the new medical science, as we call it, and that whole process is a different process. It's a different way of going about it. And the other way, Ayurveda is, okay, let's not say Ayurveda, any of those natural ways of curing yourself is a different process. Now, because of the fact that judiciary is something which has become important and it has its role to play, it's important, yes, that to say that now we are the ones to look at dispute resolution, and every dispute resolution that happens, we have something to do with it. I have a problem with that. That is where I'm saying this whole colonization mindset, that the judiciary can actually think that you have a limited role to play in dispute resolution, play that role and play it well. Why, of course, for you it's a little different to look at it because of the, like I said, the context. Here there are about now almost 50 million cases which are pending in courts. 50 million already pending in courts. Okay, and obviously every year about 20 million go into courts, and about 20 million come out of the courts. That's it. So 50 million are always going to stay there up till the judiciary doesn't make itself efficient. And I'm saying this in a lot of countries. It's not just India. A lot of countries. I mean, there are, of course, all over. It could be Africa, could be South America, could be Asia. So it's all there. It's happening. So in that kind of a situation, I've been saying, why doesn't the Chief Justice of India, instead of this committee and look at mediation, which has nothing to do with you, go into all kinds of television, put it into press, in the media, everywhere. Just go, folded hands, say we are inefficient. We haven't been able to do the work that we were supposed to do. So please try mediation. It is a good process. At least experience it. And it'll be a nice way of going about it. That if you are inefficient, tell them you're inefficient. You deny justice because justice delayed is justice denied. Tell them that. Be open about it. Why should you go through this and how do we push them through mediation? We have to clear our backlog. So we should don't do that. Be nice about it. Tell them it's a good process. And at the end of the day, that settlement agreement is as good as a court degree. That's what you have to tell them. And you don't have to come to us at all. I'm saying, how can we make a way? Again, maybe look, Greece, being a small country, maybe might be a little different. But how can we make a way out that people don't have to touch the courts also? And don't have to touch lawyers also. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I would still say that they should not. That's something that should come up at a very later stage if it has to come up. If dispute resolution can happen without the involvement of lawyers and the judiciary. This is the message we have to send out. And then the concept of mediation will take off. Because today also that connection in some way or the other is there. And I'm saying that it is not good for the whole process, because finally people, if they connect any law also where there's a connection with lawyers and with the judiciary in some way or the other, if there's an involvement, that whole thing of empowerment, self-determination, you still take it away. You still don't know, telling them there is something somewhere else has to come into the process. I don't know how you look at it.
I don't know. I'm really not familiar with the situation in India, so I couldn't have an opinion on that. But I'm really sorry to hear that you have 15 million cases pending. That's
50.
50. Oh, okay.
Yes.
It's even more. 50 million cases pending, which is a huge issue, I guess, for the whole country. I guess that something that you and everybody in the planet could also work on is dispute prevention. So applying the skills that we all have as mediators to prevent disputes before they arrive to court, change the mentality, help people reach out to a third party early enough in the process. And what we have also seen, I'm sure you also saw that when parties come to you to help them, when the conflict has escalated a lot harder to find a solution compared to having parties that come to you and seek for your assistance early enough in the conflict. So I guess we can also work on changing the mentality and convincing people that they should seek assistance at an early stage to prevent the escalation of a dispute.
For me, Eleni, it's actually been that way, and I've gone a step ahead of that. I've looked at preemption of disputes. So I've been part of organizations, and of course, I do corporate work, so maybe I'll only talk about it from that perspective. So got into organizations and the role that we have to play, and to be able to be that third person there who can bring people together, get the communication flowing. That is what I've done in organizations. And even, I mean, basic documents which are important for the organization, internal structures, sat down with all departments, got everyone together on the table, and we've discussed that. Contract drafting, sat in that part of it, looked at that. Then obviously there are third party, there have various kinds of arrangements. Be part of that. So I've been saying there is so much work for mediators in this world. For what reason do mediators why are they not able to practice as full-time mediators? I have a problem with that. So there's some fundamental issue which we have to address.
When in the past, there were many people trained as mediators who were asking me, what can I do to practice that? I don't have enough cases. And what I've always been telling them is that you can practice it also. You can practice all the skills outside the typical mediation setting where people have a conflict and they come to you. You can go to areas where you have access, whether this is a company, a school, an organization, help them organize their meetings, train them in order to address conflict early on, help them understand the process of mediation, help them choose what process they want to follow, help them incorporate it in the rules. If there is a company, they can have a code of conduct that also has a mention in mediation as a dispute resolution process. And I know for a fact that in the UK now, big companies, they hire mediators to facilitate their meetings, just to facilitate meetings, because their skills can be applied everywhere, from deal facilitation to meeting facilitation to dispute resolution.
Absolutely. And then that role becomes larger in society, with where government comes in and communities get affected, all those things. There's so much work. Like I keep saying that why are people not being able to take it on a full-time basis? We have to really look at the way it's spread. And I'm telling you, the way I look at it, that the whole focus has been institutions, and they having a role. They have a role in the sense of pushing policy in countries. They can do that maybe, but their numbers in terms of actual dispute resolution is very small. Large institutions also. I mean, people keep talking about Singapore, and Singapore is doing things on mediation. And I look at the SIMC in the last 1997 to today, they've done some 5,000 matters. I mean, how does that? I mean, there's nothing compared to the number of disputes out there, but the focus in discussions in the mediation world for something goes around the institutions, and then the accreditation certifications of those institutions. I'm saying, let's, as mediators, look at the larger picture, society in general, countries, the larger picture in countries, and look at how we can, from the grassroots level, develop it, and take it from there. And that is where, like I said, those finally come down to those people who are there in society, in communities, and not just villages. I mean, in towns, in cities, everywhere they're up there. You said families, like you said correctly, the families also have those people. So let's just identify that, and Eleni is going to help me do that in Greece and Cyprus. And how do we get them into discussion? First, let's just get them together. We'll feel, and then it will be nice to have discussions with them in terms of promotion of mediation, or them telling us about the process and everything, because they know everything about it. They're doing it. They're actual. Then you don't have to tell them that they're the ones who are effective. So why are we not picking up the effective people instead of saying some other people can be given a dose and they might become effective?
Well, we have, at least in my jurisdictions, in both of them, we have a large number of trained and qualified and accredited mediators. So lack of mediators is not an issue. But of course, as you said, that parties need to trust the mediator. So if there is one in their environment, then can easily be trusted. And that's an advice we give to new mediators, that don't look outside your cycle for new cases. Look at people who already trust you, and they know you, and they know that you can do this job. This is the best way to attract cases and help people.
But I tell you, Eleni, the problem with that is that what we've done is, like, there was Andrew Miller who was in that symposium. He's in the UK. He says there are 18,000 accredited mediators in the UK. Only 500 have work. So that whole thing of trying to say, okay, we'll pick up from society, we'll put a certain stamp on you that you are certified, then we'll put you back into society and say, now you use certified mediators. The problem is that the fact that whether that certification by itself works or not, let's just forget that. The point of making mediators, when first of all you have them there, bring them out, and when that trust is all, now we are saying you create trust, or if you have trust, you take it forward. But why I'm saying we'll start from those people who are there, take it from there, and then develop mediation around it. That's the way I'm looking at it, because I'm seeing nowhere in the world has it really worked. Even in the US also, it hasn't. I mean, the way I would want it, that this should be your first port of call, that you look at mediation, not happening there also. There also the courts are, I mean, okay, I end up maybe settling matters sooner, maybe. But there also courts are, it's not that they're, for there 2 years might be a long time. Here 20 years is a long time. Everywhere is in terms of reference point, it might be different. But there also, if you have 100 million cases filed in courts in the US every year, something did not work. Because I am saying, for slowly matters should not go to courts. But in 40, 45 years, and the world looks at the US and mediation, US and everything, the model, the box of mediation goes around from there. But how's it work there? I mean, look at it from that perspective. Is it something that's the first choice for people? It's not. What is the reason for that? Then it means that trust, either the trust is not there, the people that you trust, okay, you go through the lawyers, and lawyers take you through the route of mediation, and you get a settlement, and you get out of the process. That's not the route that I feel is good for countries in general, or people in general. That's not a good cycle to put them through. Yeah. Why are we not going first to them?
Again, I think it has to do with the characteristics of each culture, country, region, and its legal system. I don't think that there is one solution fits all to that issue. And that's why most countries that have actually developed mediation, and they have many cases, they pass through many adventures and many different systems until they found the system that works for them. I guess that requiring accreditation and specific training is justified, at least in countries where there is a mandatory it is mandatory for the parties to go through mediation, because you want really high quality, and you want to have quality control. And in those countries, the hours of the training are much higher than a normal 40-hour training. So for example, in Greece, it's 80 hours if you want to become a mediator. And you learn the skills, the process, and you also learn the legal context of it. Because if you want to to help reach enforceable agreement, you need to be aware of the legal context as well. I guess we could discuss for hours about the different systems and their advantages and disadvantages. I don't think that there's a perfect system. I think that all systems can be improved, and a different system works for every country, every region, and sometimes different systems work within the same country or the same region for different types of cases. So for family cases, perhaps we can have, I don't know, a different system compared to the system we have for business cases. For neighbor disputes, we may have a different system. So it has to do with the size of the country, the legal system, the culture, the type of dispute, all that. It's a complicated algorithm, I would say.
Me, Eleni, how I look at it is that, okay, not a problem. Let's look at for me, the point where people can practice as full-time mediators, any country, let's go to any country in the world and let's find out, because that is when the whole thing is successful, because mediators have to be the center focus. And that mediator, if that mediator is not being able to practice as a full-time mediator, there is an issue. So I haven't been able to find any country in the world where people are being able to practice as full-time mediators. I mean, of course, no, there are numbers. I mean, it's not that there are not some people doing it. I mean, I'm also doing it, but I don't find any other. There are few of them. There are some people you find, but most of them, of course, are either litigating lawyers who are in the court system. At the end of the day, the court system doesn't pay them anything. And there is a small amount. Some courts, of course, give us a certain amount. So I always keep saying that, look, from that perspective, you want to look at pushing mediation. But on the other end, the mediator should not get anything. They don't get anything in that system, be it mandatory or whatever. Are they getting what the market should give them or what they should get from the market? They don't get that. Nowhere in the world it's happening. So at the end of the day, what are you doing? You're devaluing mediation and mediators. That's what you're doing. That's the signal you're sending out, that mediators you can get for this. And I keep saying this, that here we talk about the judiciary and we say discrimination is something, if that happens, people go to the judiciary. That, okay, there is discrimination happening. In the judiciary itself, there are people who have to go, there are mediation centers which are set up in courts. They will get X amount. I mean, in the sense, let's look at different countries. Nigeria, for a whole matter, they will get $40. In India, there are different, of course, different courts where it's happening, but it might be maybe $100. Let's look at it. Some places it is $100 for entire mediation. In the in that same court, there are lawyers who can charge what they want from their clients, what they want. And there are, in India, of course, there are all kinds. There are senior lawyers who might charge $10,000, $20,000 a hearing. So in the same court, when you do that discrimination because you feel that mandatory aspect, or we should push people to mediation, not a problem, push them. But at the same time, the mediators should get what the market should give them. Why are you wanting to control that? And that is that discrimination that I am against. On what basis are you discriminating against them? I'm saying, even going to the extent, Eleni, is that there is this whole concept of multi-door courthouses, which was a concept this was developed. I'm saying make multi-door courthouses. There'll be one point, you tell them about mediation, arbitration, litigation, and they can choose whatever they want, but pay everyone who, that arbitrator or the lawyer in the litigation or the mediator, the same amount. Be it $40 or $400, just give them same amount. That day, the lawyers will shut down that mediations or that multi-door courthouse. They'll shut down the court for some time, because lawyers will never want to control themselves. But this aspect of discrimination happening in that same court, perfectly all right with people. No one talks about that. And mediators are too nice to even fight about it. They will never go out on the road and make lawyers will go out, they'll close the courthouse. But we won't do that. So I think that's what being taken advantage of. And that's what I have an issue with, that you can't be discriminatory.
We don't have multi-door courthouses, but I'm aware of the concept from the US and Nigeria. And we only have private mediation. And we also have a kind of court annexed mediation where the judge can mediate the case if the parties want that, but not a mediator who's not a judge. For us, again, remuneration of mediation services is a huge issue. And of course, if you're not remunerated properly, then you cannot do that full time. I guess that in some countries, there are some remuneration tables, and mediators follow that. So we have these, let's say, general guidelines in both Cyprus and Greece. So remuneration is not that low. I mean, it's quite low when it comes to the mandatory first session, because it has to be something quite affordable for the people in order not to be considered as an impediment to justice. So remuneration for the mandatory first session is low, but then when the parties decide to resolve the dispute, they pay the mediator a proper amount. And even in the law, there is a suggested amount. I mean, the parties can agree a different one with the mediator, but there is a suggested amount in the law. And this somehow protects the whole process from charging too low, I would say. I haven't seen, I mean, I know from other countries that this is a huge issue, but it hasn't been such a huge topic for us, just because there is a mention on the remuneration of the mediator in the law itself. I really have no advice on what could be the solution for different countries on that.
I'm telling you, the solution is just judiciary, stay away from it. That's what my thing was. Whenever you get the judiciary in this issue, what you just said, that you are going to in some way control their access to justice. If you put a higher amount for that first meeting, so there is something that the people might not be able to afford, and we have to, because we have been set up, the judicial process is something that people should be able to access, and this should not come in the way. So we will, what do? Let's control the mediator's fee. That is where everything comes down to. Why should that be controlled? Why are we not going to run our houses? Don't we have stomachs attached to our bodies? Why are we not going to do that? Why that aspect comes in? And then, I mean, I'm just saying this thought, even the thought for that, I'm saying, can you do that for lawyers? Can you say, have you put a table out that, okay, lawyers, this should be the suggested fee for a lawyer? Because once you put a suggested fee out there, things start around that. Discussions on fee starts around that only. There is a suggested fee. But where do you do it? I mean, I haven't seen any table from any country which says the lawyers should only charge this much. Should. I mean, it's not mandatory, but this should be the table of fees. It doesn't happen. So I'm saying, if you have to take it forward, we have to look at mediators as people who are in some way helping, are doing a better job than maybe the judges also, because what the settlement agreement has no appeal against. It's settled, the matter is closed. When a judge gives a decision, that can be appealed against. So there's no finality of it. So mediators doing a better job than a judge, but mediators should not get it. But okay, right, you're right. There are different countries, different situations, and I've got you into a discussion which I don't think you are also very comfortable with. So let's talk about something nicer. Nicer. In terms of traveling, Greece.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Before that, I'll just want to leave you with a positive note. I've seen parties when they're really satisfied, because it's a results-oriented profession. So when people see results, they want to thank you somehow. So I've seen parties, after a successful resolution of their dispute, wanting to actually pay you more than you have asked. Yeah. So I guess this is the positive thing. When we do our jobs as we do, parties are happy with us and they want to pay us.
Yeah. What you use the word profession. The only thing that this discussion I really want to have, whether it's a profession or not, because you said practicing it as a profession. Is it a profession or is it a way of life?
It's a way of life. Certainly a way of life. If it's not a way of life for the mediator, then he cannot do it as a profession. But it's also a profession, and as you said, we need to eat. We have a stomach attached to us, so it's both, I would say.
Because I think for me, the profession part, why I feel that it's not a profession, because of the fact that I told you that profession means there is a certain training required, a certain qualification required, and I'm saying that it is a way of life, and all these factors should never come in between that individual and the process. It is, again, parties, their trust, their gauge, totally theirs, and it's a mutual thing. I mean, both the parties, or all the parties, for them, when they're gauging someone, they've tested the person through various ways in their conversations and everything. They have to find that trust. They have to find that comfort. So that part of it comes in without any smaller pool that you make for them. Okay, you have to choose out of this pool. No, they can find anyone they want. And I've been trying to promote it through various professions, like architects. I've said, yeah, you have a certain project and there is a dispute. Why don't you step in and try and help them resolve it? So there are people who've done that, and successfully. They did not require, because look, technically they know what the whole thing is all about. They can help them on that aspect of it. And so for some reason there is that feeling that lawyers in some way, because there is some legal aspect to it, so lawyers should come in. I'm saying lawyers are just service providers. They can be brought in whenever required as lawyers. Whatever you want, some opinion or something on something, they can always be brought in. But to say lawyers have to be involved in every process where anything, because there will be some legal aspect to everything, that definitely have to be. But if the mediator is fair, reasonable, and the parties are fair and reasonable, definitely law will be that. The law will support you on that, because law has to be fair and reasonable, equitable, just, all those things. If parties are that, or the mediator comes in as that, if you check the law, it will be saying, it'll say the same thing. It's not going to be out of it, because that is when a law comes out, it has looked at those aspects of it. And if it is not, then challenge the law, because then if the law is not fair, just, and reasonable, there is something wrong with the law. So I feel that we need to broaden that. That's why this whole qualification, certification. But there was one particular webinar which took place. There was someone, I don't know whether you heard of these RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. Okay, so in the UK they have these chartered surveyors. So there was a group of that, and there was a webinar there, and I was speaking to them and just telling them about mediation, the culture of mediation. And someone there from that webinar got motivated enough on a project of theirs, did the mediation successfully. And if that one person can do it just by talking about it, and if I told them, no, first you have to go for this qualification, only then you should do it, or you can do it in your country. I'm saying today we're talking about this online world. Now, Eleni sitting in Greece can definitely mediate a matter somewhere in any part of the world. So now, whether in that country could you have mediated, what is the qualification in that country, all those discussions, are they required? When parties come to you, they could be anywhere. Now, which part they want to enforce the agreement is up to them. Whenever they have to, supposing they come from only one country, because everyone keeps talking obviously about the Singapore Convention and cross-border. But I'm saying you don't have to have a cross-border mediation to have a cross-border mediator. You can any mediation. In terms of a pool, today I am trying to create. I'm saying create a global pool, and not have regulations in various countries and who can practice or not practice, because that question might come up if there is enforcement required by courts, and you go there, no, this mediator was there and this mediator not qualified to do this here, there. Let's just, for mediation, let's stop all that, because luckily Singapore Convention also, there the mediation can happen anywhere in the world. The parties don't have to be in a country which has even signed the convention. It can only the country where it has to be enforced should have ratified the convention. It's as simple as that. So leave that's what I'm saying. Let's just leave mediation away from all these legalities and everything. Let people find whom they want, wherever they are. And don't regulate that part of it, because you'll spoil the pool. I want Eleni to be mediating a matter which might happen in India, and parties are only in India. Why should she not be able to do it? Why you want to regulate that aspect of it? So this is something which is, I feel, should be looked at.
That's a big discussion, and I know that there are many voices advocating for having a one international pool of mediators, and anyone being able to choose the mediator that they want. But I guess creating a framework for that would require as in a mediation, reaching an agreement would require all interested parties agreeing to all these terms. And I'm not sure we're there yet, at least in certain countries which have too many laws and everything is overregulated, just in terms of enforcement. That if the parties, again, they just want to resolve an issue and they don't really care about enforcement because they're willing to keep their promises, or there is nothing to be enforced because their agreement does not include anything that needs to be enforced, then sure, they can choose any mediator they want.
Because I'm saying that at any point, because look, enforcement, definitely when people get into a settlement agreement, they never think that someone's going to violate that, is going to be, obviously no one looks at it, but they, at the back of their mind, they have to have that aspect, and they will have to look at the regulation in a country where they want to enforce it, and these aspects of whether the mediator could or could not do this mediation should not come up. I'm saying that whether that discussion is happening or not happening, I don't know, but I feel that we should have it. I mean, we should start the discussion and not let this go into a direction where parties are not in control. Let parties be in control. Why? I mean, why control them? It's their dispute, and I'm going to tell you in your dispute whom you are going to have as someone to resolve your dispute. I think it's the saddest thing that can happen. I mean, because basically, I think what you're saying that the parties are not intelligent enough. We are more intelligent than you. We understand things better than you do for yourself. I think that is, again, I'll use the word, this is all the colonization mindset, that we know better than you and we will tell you what to do, and we will create that framework, we will create the box in which you have to sit to do with. But why am I getting you back into this discussion? Eleni, we were getting out of this discussion.
Okay, let's go out of this discussion. It's a long one. We can stay for hours. But
I know.
as a final thing, I'll say that even in jurisdiction where there is a framework, a specific framework, the mediator can still let the parties decide freely on what they want. I mean, it's up to us to make sure that it's the process of the parties and it's the decision of the parties, irrespectively of the framework and the box and everything else you mentioned. So let's move out. Let's go to the next topic.
Normally the topics is not like it's okay, but here we need to. I'm more interested in this lawyer linguist aspect of it. This lawyer linguist, this is interesting.
Okay, so I studied as a lawyer. My career, and because I speak a few languages, I started translating legal documents. So I had a contract with the Court of the European Union and some international translation companies that translate documents for the European Union. So I got some expertise on that, translating legal documents to and from English, Greek, French, Spanish, etc.
You have to slowly. Which languages are involved?
So yeah, Greek, English, French, and Spanish. But I'm not doing that anymore because now I'm a full-time mediator. And I work only with dispute resolution, but I've done that for a few years, and it was interesting. I learned a lot by translating legal documents from many different countries and the European Union.
Very good. So now I know whenever when there's a meeting of mediators from South America, we could get Eleni in for the Spanish English part. I mean, this is a big problem I'm facing because a lot of people there don't speak anything but Spanish. So I've had some shows of mine also where they could not speak English, so we had someone to translate. But I stumped out because I don't think it's going to be so easy for me to learn the language. So I do try Google Translate. It was very interesting. There was one meeting, and this person in that meeting only knew Spanish, and it was just the two of us. Okay, so here I have a person who only speaks Spanish. I'm the person who only speaks English. So we used Google Translate. So I shared my screen. I was speaking into Google Translate. It was typing on the side, and that person opened Google Translate, was talking in that. Imagine in this world when you can't communicate with someone in the same room. Okay, it's the same room. I mean, physically we might not be there, but it's the same room, and it's sad that two people can't communicate. So either we have to start learning sign language. Maybe that's what we have to do.
I've heard that sign language is not the same in every language. So I know that Greek sign language is different than English sign language.
Seriously?
I'm not sure if it's the whole, all the set of movements different, but there are differences. So I'm not sure if it's the same across the globe.
My God, I thought this was one thing that could be uniform. That could be uniform. So
you know what is? Music. Music is, if you want to communicate with other people. Music is the only thing that is universal.
So that's what I should have done that day. I should have just played music and nothing else. No discussion required. Whatever it could be, Indian, Spanish, anything, any music. I think that definitely helps. And then you'll be very surprised that music from India, Bollywood, as we call it, the film industry, songs from there, people listen to in all parts of the world. I mean, I was really surprised. There was someone from Kyrgyzstan in one of that symposium. she had listened to some songs, which, I mean, really old songs from India. They were listening to that. Nigeria, it surprises me. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Obviously, we have a large film industry, and definitely music, like you said, is something which can go everywhere. But you feel happy, maybe. You just feel happy that yes, someone knows a song from your country which you also might not have heard. It's really nice.
It's connecting people. Art is connecting people in general, whether it's music or painting or anything else.
But Eleni, have you heard any Bollywood music or not?
Yeah, I have.
Which one? What song? Tell us about.
I don't know songs. I don't know specific songs, but I've heard it through movies or in different events I was, and I really like the rhythm and the style. To be honest, I was a musician, so I like all kinds of music. Give me music and I'm happy. So yeah, I enjoy it, and I enjoy the vibes. It makes me feel positive and happy when I listen to Indian music.
Yeah, music in general would do that, and yes, we have. Of course, we have a wide mix of things. But when you said you've been a musician, what does that mean? You've played instruments, or?
Yeah. I was very lucky. My high school was a music high school, like the ones you see in the movies.
Wow.
Yeah, a free public school available to anyone, but it was a music high school. So all my friends are musicians. They follow different styles of music. I was a musician for many years as well. I worked as an accordion player. And music is a big part of my life, although I don't have time to play as much as I used to.
Okay, Eleni, we have time right now. Please take out the accordion. Let's hear something.
No. I don't have it here at the office with me, even if I wanted to. But
that's the time when you take a break. Yeah, take a break and then just start playing that. And maybe you can play it as part of a mediation also. Mediation and music. Yeah, that should be interesting.
Yeah, okay, that's a nice suggestion. I'll consider it for my next case.
Seriously. Okay, let's take a break. Let's just play some music and let's just whatever, and then get back to talking about the matter. I think that's a good idea. I think maybe we should do that. There is concept of using art and mediation, poetry and mediation. There was one lecture that Kathy from Canada, she had given last month or this month only, on the aspect of poetry and mediation. So that was interesting. So lots of things.
Yes, it's I guess that mediation can benefit from different arts and sciences as well. So I'm really into studying behavioral economics, cognitive biases, business practices that can all give tips that we can use during mediation. And at the other side, we can also study about different ways of expression through arts and cognitive psychology to help people who are more introvert express themselves during mediation. Sometimes using art can help someone open up. So it's really nice that you are never bored in this profession. If you want to learn more and more things, you can always look at other professions and practices. I don't know, I know you don't like the word profession. So if you, let's say role, so in this role, you're never bored. You can always learn and borrow techniques from other sciences and arts and make your work even better.
Yeah, I mean, any way that they can collaborate with each other, because that lecture that Kathy was talking about, she said, I tell them to write a poem. So in that sense, there is some activity happening. There is some involvement there. And even say art, then the fact that you are in some way involved in a process where you might be, of course, taken away from the dispute, yes, but how can you collaborate with each other in different ways and then take it to your dispute and collaborate there? I think those are things which in some way can strike people, it can actually change the way they're looking at each other. And I think there are interesting things that have to be done there, and people are doing it, and I feel very happy when I see that happening. The larger viewpoint on where mediation can do, because this vision 2026, I'd put out this concept that there's this vision 2026, and I'd put certain points out and out for discussion. Even this profession part of it, I'm not saying, I'm saying, look, I'm saying that, is it a profession? So the profession question mark, on my website, I put it as that. But we need to have these discussions, because if you have to really develop something, are we developing it in the right direction or not? If you're developing it as a profession, like I said, training, qualification, you go in that direction. If it's a way of life thing, there are various other things that have to be brought in there, and whatever. I keep repeating my heart, soul, and spirituality thing. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, whether it's an important part. Is it a part or not? What do you feel?
I think it is. I think that you need, if you want to help the parties and be a good mediator, you need to work a lot with your emotions, your heart, your spirituality. Where I don't mean by spirituality, I guess you don't mean only religion, you mean general, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you need to work on that. You need to be in touch with your deeper thoughts and emotions in order to channel them properly during a mediation, and in order to be able to help other people express theirs during the process. So yeah, it's a big part. It's a big part, and it's a lot of work. I'm actually, I feel lucky because I learned so many things about myself through the journey of becoming a mediator.
But interestingly, let me tell you, so I'm just looking at who all are watching on Facebook, and I see, look at the wide range of people, which countries. I have India, Greece. Olga is from Greece. Then there is from Peru. There is, of course, India, Thailand, Nigeria. So you can say hi to all of them.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
I don't know whether, do you know Olga or not?
Yes, of course I know Olga. Okay. We haven't met many times, but I think we met once in person.
Oh, she's such a wonderful person. I mean, she was on that In Conversation with the Beautiful Mind. We just had that. It was really nice talking to her. Really, she put a post out about her daughter and how she's qualified for whatever, and that part of it was, I think, as children grow up and mothers look at their children growing up like that also, I think must be a nice feeling, although they can't imagine those little kids becoming that old. So, and of course Yuktanand is in Thailand, so she's saying hi. And I don't know, I mean, I just feel that with people all over the world, like I just told you, this whole pool that I'm talking about, I don't see any difference really. I mean, they can mediate anywhere in the world. I see no reason where that should come in the way. They're all, I know, I mean, if I've dealt with all of them, I've spoken to all of them, and I can see that it would not really make any difference. I mean, they could be mediating anywhere.
The more I travel, the more I come to the conclusion that people are the same everywhere. I mean, there are different contexts and there are cultural differences that you need to be aware of and understand. And there are very sensitive things that you must not touch in certain occasions, for sure. But people have the same instincts, worries, fears, desires, needs everywhere around the world. So yeah.
No, I tell you, I think this whole thing about cultural differences is, I think it's a little too hyped up thing. There are cultural differences between me and the family living in the next door to mine. There's cultural difference there. Everything, it might change everything. I mean, the sense what they eat, how they dress, they could change right there. So I think there is some certain basics about us as people. If you touch that chord, you're a musician, you touch that chord, the right music will come out. You don't have to, because obviously different sounds come out from different chords, but the right chord, when they say, when you touch it, music flows. I mean, the right music will flow. For me, that's something that never comes up. I never even know. I just see similarities. People might look at how things are different. I don't see any differences. Similarity as an individual, as a person, their thought process, that's what you are more interested in. How they dress, I mean, or how they pronounce words. People get lost in the pronunciation. Oh, this person pronounces like that, and they get focused on that. How does it matter? I mean, finally it's communication. I mean, so minor things come up in terms of that. And you said, maybe you might say, oh, will I offend someone? If you're a good human being and you have good thoughts, and you actually are, I mean, from your side, are not going to do anything to offend someone, why would you offend someone? You don't even have to think about it. But if you are going to be obnoxious, you will offend anyone in your own city, in your own neighborhood. You're going to offend them there. So I think just be nice. Everyone will be nice.
there is certainly a universal practice we all follow and universal rules. And I guess that as mediators, we're trained to find, or we have it in us to find similarities everywhere we go. However, I've heard some stories from colleagues working abroad where their intentions were heavily misunderstood because of cultural differences. But when I'm referring to cultural differences, I don't define that as differences depending on their country of origin. Because as you said, I may have cultural differences with my neighbor. So sometimes when I mediate between a bank and a company, I need to take into consideration different cultural aspects than the ones that I pay attention to when I mediate between two individuals or two family members. So cultural differences are apparent even in the same community. It's not just a matter of country, origin, language, it's religion, or anything else.
Look, I do get a little distracted because I'm looking at comments there. So there is Victor Baba. Yeah. Victor Baba he's from Kenya. He's also a JAMS fellow. He was there day before yesterday. So he's given one comment of it is quite a provocative conversation. Clearly, there is no one size fits all approach, especially with mediation. And the other thing is, I think arts would play an integral role in trauma-informed mediations. I would love to hear Eleni's view since music is a huge part of her life. Yes, please, Eleni, what would you like to say?
My views about what music can do for mediation?
Integral role in trauma-informed mediations.
Trauma. I've never worked to that, to be honest. I really admire colleagues who have done that. I guess that music can always help with healing processes. So first of all, the result that I saw in everyday mediations is that it relaxes people. It helps people stop overthinking. And also there's some studies some studies of cognitive sciences that say that when our mind is occupied by something else, such as listening to music, listening to the radio, listening to something in the background, then it's easier for us to accept more difficult ideas, to process more difficult ideas, because we're not over-focused on the difficult part. So I guess it could play a role in relaxing people, but again, I've never done such a mediation, and I have a huge respect for the colleagues who do that.
Okay, so Victor, now what is happening is Eleni is going to keep her accordion in her office and she's going to be playing music for first, no opening statement, opening music. Let us all maybe do an opening dance and then let's talk about, interesting, Eleni, maybe that's what it has to happen. First of all, it has to happen outside. Why should mediation be happening in a room?
And then after COVID-19 restrictions, we should try dance as well.
Exactly. I mean, really nice. And I'm telling you, let's not have them inside. Let's have them outside in the park. Let's everyone get their little picnic basket. Everyone sit out there, do a little dance, have music playing, and you do your mediation sitting there. Like I said, there's this whole formal thing that has been created into. It is not. Doesn't have to be that. There's so much more around it. I'm saying even like if you're in villages under a certain tree and you sit there, and why not?
I've never done a mediation outside, but I've met colleagues from different countries who have done mediation outside an office, at a library or a park, and they all told me that parties are more positive and more open and less aggressive. So I guess it plays a role.
No, I've done it outside, but now, of course, now everything is going to be online. And for me, this environment is also, I mean, I think it's quite nice. It's not a problem on that. So, but yes, people should be open to keeping it as a informal thing for the process and the venue and everything. So now, definitely you're going to give us your feedback next time how music and dance helped.
But by the way, I don't have, I cannot see in front of me the comments on Facebook, but thank you all for your comments and your questions.
Okay, so basically the comment came from Victor only. Everyone else is there, but Victor gave that comment. So, but the only thing that we have done is we haven't gone into the JAMS fellowship. That's the interesting part. This was supposed to be Mediator Experiences, and for you to start with, it should have been to start with, but doesn't matter. So how did that whole JAMS fellowship come up?
Well, how it started, how the idea started, or how it. Uh, I guess I saw the fellowship when I started my career in mediation, and I thought this is a goal. I want to do it at some point in my life where I'll have more experience. It was the only program that offered me the practical experience I needed and I wanted to get. I don't think there is any similar program around the world that offers so many possibilities for people who want to promote mediation. So yeah, I had my eyes on that for a long time until I finally went in 2019.
But when did, I mean, the thought, when did the thought first come in?
When I did my master's degree in 2011, so 8 years before that.
Wow, so 2011 to 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but in terms of finding out about it, and what did you really, I mean, did you talk about it to someone? Did you know what was happening?
No, I was actually looking around the world for similar programs, and I found it on the web at that point. Later on, I met mediators who were Weinstein JAMS Fellows, and they shared their experience. So my initial desire to apply for it was even more enhanced, let's say.
Because obviously I'll come to that aspect about no such program in the world, because I'll have some thoughts on that. But before that, what was the plan? I mean, because obviously you had to put out as this is what I'm going to do in Greece when I come back. So that, of course, you have to take us through, look, every aspect of it, because somewhere down the line, someone who's applying for it, maybe next year, of course, this year they can't apply, next year for the other one. So in that process, whatever you tell them will help. That was it. Look, that's how the series started. That this application time was, I think it was November some date.
Yeah.
So I started it before that, so that people who are applying, they can benefit from it. So when I had the initial ones with Adi, I had someone who was applying, they were there, and he was telling them. I mean, it basically, the series started with actually the process, the larger discussion that we started having after I had started having those later. But initially, it was very focused on the application. So you have to help.
My application was mainly for Cyprus, because in Greece, we already had an established system on mediation which kicked off, and it's going better and better. There is still a long way to go, but there is an established mediation system. In Cyprus, there was a law, but we still don't have too many cases. So my main focus was on how to promote especially business mediation in Cyprus, because Cyprus is a business hub. It has many companies, multinational companies from different sectors, energy, tech, gaming, accounting. So I wanted to see how business mediation works in the US, and get some ideas on how we could do that in Cyprus when coming back. That was the first goal. The second for me was to visit universities and other teaching institutes that teach mediation, and also see how they do it. I've been involved with university training law students, to be more precise, to participate in the various mediation competitions, or even organize tournaments themselves inside their schools in order to promote the process. So I wanted to see how this is done in institutions that have been doing that for decades. And my third goal was to get more ideas about forms of mediation that we don't have in Cyprus, such as community-based mediation, multi-door courthouses, volunteering programs, etc., and see if I could implement any of that when coming back. My advice for anyone who wants to apply is to apply for something they genuinely want to do when they go back home, and apply for something, include in their application something that they're already been doing, that they have already invested in, and they just want through this program to learn more about it in order to implement it better. I guess that every application is unique, and it depends on the country, it depends on you as a person, and it depends on many things. There is not a recipe like do 1, 2, 3 and you will get the fellowship. My only advice is be original and include in your application something that you really aspire to do, not somebody else's idea.
And what was your plan then? What were you going to do in the US? I mean, in the sense of what studies and everything?
Yeah, I spent 4 months there, the full duration of the fellowship. I spent 1 month in New York, 2 months in the Bay Area, so San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and 1 month in LA. I visited multiple different programs. So as I said, court annex mediation programs, volunteering programs, community programs. I shadowed JAMS Mediators, which was very, very helpful for my practice as well, because I saw different styles from facilitative to evaluative. I saw different professionals, law professionals, former judges, and other professionals as well. Yeah, some inside JAMS, some outside JAMS. I had the pleasure of being an assistant trainer, because when I went there, I already had some experience as a trainer. So I was an assistant trainer in different trainings in the US. So I saw from the inside how US mediators are trained. And I also had the chance to spend a few months as a visitor at the courses held at the Stanford Law School on mediation, negotiation, facilitation, etc. I had a quite busy schedule, but I loved it. I loved every second of it. It was a life-changing experience, as I said.
But this is just the highlights. You've just told us, okay, this now you have to elaborate on this, because this is what people would want to know. So you have to elaborate.
Okay, what would you like me to elaborate on?
Because actually, when you were shadowing, what if you? I mean, obviously, you don't have to tell us exactly what that matter was, but a little bit about that, and then you said facilitative, evaluative part of it. More on that, I think that'd be interesting.
So before the JAMS Fellowship, I also had the pleasure of shadowing different colleagues around Europe. And when I went into the US, it was a bit of a shock for me to see the evaluative style, because in Europe, we don't have it that much. But I also saw that it works when the parties choose it. So it's again up to the parties. If the parties choose an evaluative mediator, it can also work, but it's again up to them. I've seen, where can I start now? Oh, that's a huge topic. So
that was supposed to be the topic.
Yeah. So I remember seeing mediators handling very, very sensitive cases, high emotional cases, which involved medical malpractice or issues regarding sickness and death. And I really admired and learned a lot from the sensibility they had to handle these issues and how calm they remained throughout the process. I also saw how some experienced mediators in multi-party disputes organized the mediation process, because a big part of our job is to design the process according to the parties' needs. So if you have 30 parties involved in a dispute, you cannot just throw them into a room. It's not going to work. You need to work with them in advance, plan in advance, organize different meetings with different people in different combinations, and that's an art. That's not something that you can do without some experience. So I saw a couple of such cases. I learned a lot from that. What else? I guess the commercial part was also very interesting. See how business disputes are handled based on commercial interests and see creative solutions arising out of them. And I also saw some disputes on sensitive issues such as harassment, because this is a big part of a big percentage of mediations. At least it was in the state of New York, especially because after the Me Too movement, there were many harassment cases mediated. We don't usually mediate these cases in many countries in Europe. So seeing these cases mediated successfully with all the sensitivities around them was quite interesting for me as well.
Okay. So basically, you want to just give us the brief. I still feel more elaboration can be done because a lot of people will not be able to experience this. And
yeah,
so I think maybe as much as you can tell them. Because one is, okay, I learned a lot. One is this is what I learned. These are the key takeaways from that.
Okay.
You're helping people. Imagine actually helping people somewhere. Someone is going to get inspired, or someone's going to.
I can tell you the final conclusions I got into. So first of all, you don't need to fit into a stereotype to be a mediator. Mediator is not one thing. You don't have to be you don't have to be someone else. You don't have to be someone you saw in a training. You don't have to be your trainer or someone you saw on a video or another mediator you met. You should be original. You should be yourself, because if you aren't, the parties will realize that and it's not going to work. And it doesn't matter whether you have a unique style in mediation. If you follow the principles and if you follow the party's rhythm, the case can be resolved.
That's a very, very important takeaway. Yeah.
So don't imitate other mediators. Be yourself and follow the party's needs. Another takeaway I had was respect the party's timing. Sometimes I saw that the solution was apparent early on in the mediation, especially from the caucuses. I could see the solution from the early beginning, but the parties were not ready to accept it openly in front of the other side yet. They needed their time. And the mediators, the experienced mediators, respected that timing. So even if the solution was apparent early on, they did not force it upon them. They let them process it, and processing requires time, or even a second meeting. Sometimes it's a tough thing to process. I also saw the way mediators handled lawyers when lawyers are present, especially in business dispute. Well, most certainly in big business disputes, we most certainly have lawyers, even if they're in-house counsels. So there is a very fragile but also nice connection between the mediator and the lawyer. So as a mediator, you need the lawyers when present on your side. You need to work with them. You don't want them to feel threatened by your presence. You want them to feel that you're there to help them. So you need to build trust not only with the parties, but also with the lawyers present. And sometimes, especially when the lawyers are working on a commission, lawyers are also parties of the disputes. And sometimes mediators forget that. They treat them as just as assistants. No, they're not. They're parties of the dispute as well. So you need to build trust and a good relationship and an honest relationship with them as well. I saw the importance of having both caucuses and joint meetings. And in my practice, I do both. I don't do only caucuses or only joint meetings, because they both have a value. Now, I think these are the most the biggest highlights of my takeaways.
So this is work oriented. Now, what about the part that what you enjoyed in New York and what you enjoyed in that also is part of the whole process.
It is a nice opportunity to visit places you haven't visited before. I did long road trips. So
It's not going okay. Let me
especially
tell you, it's not going to be that easy. I did long road trips. You want to tell us about those
okay.
road trips?
I did Highway 1, so from San Francisco to LA, and with all the little stops in between. I saw little towns in California, picturesque places. I don't remember the names, to be honest. It's been 3 years now. But I remember that it took me 3 days. I did it in 3 or 4 days. And each day was a surprise. Long parks, the seaside, the rocks, and all that.
And what about Napa Valley? I mean, did you have
yes. We have a weekend at Napa Valley, all the fellows together. Actually, the first week of the fellowship, which usually takes place in September, it's a week we spend all the fellows together, and at the end we visit Napa Valley. Napa Valley reminded me a lot of the Mediterranean. It's quite similar to Cyprus and Greece. We also have vineyards, and the people are very hospitable. So it felt like home for me.
Nice. That's a good thing. You have to feel at home. But what else on the other side, on the eastern coast? Did you do some road trips there?
No, in New York, I visited a lot the museums. I visited most of the museums in New York because I love it. Some plays, ballet, the Metropolitan Opera, all the art favorites.
What about Broadway? Did you see a Broadway show?
No, because I saw most of them in London. I go quite often to London, so I had seen most of them in London. Otherwise, I would have, because I love musicals.
Yeah, that must be quite an experience. But now, out of your cohort, I've had so many people now. Okay, so there was Prachi, of course, there was Adi, Katarzyna, Pranjal. So a lot of them. But you can tell us about them. About
Well, I guess the feeling you have with your co-fellows is that they become a different kind of family. The moments you spend there, the things you share with them, it's something you never forget. So who would you like me to start with?
Look, my list shows Zishan Ali on top. So I'll go by my list.
Okay. So who is on top?
Zishan Ali.
Yeah. Zishan from Pakistan. He's such a positive person. He's always happy. He's a very good dancer also. And I really like the fact that he had traveled a lot around the world as well. He had many experiences from where he did his studies. So he had a lot of things to share from his studies and his trips around the world too.
And what kind of work is he doing in Pakistan?
Zishan was working on some specific programs in Pakistan. He was trying to bring mediation closer to the people. So he was trying to facilitate access to mediation. I don't want to say something that might not be correct on what he does, but his work was quite inspiring because the final goal was to help people come closer to mediation.
Because I had Nudrat, who's also a JAMS fellow. She's from Pakistan, so she was also on Mediator Experiences.
Nudrat, yeah.
Nudrat, yeah. So she was saying, So she was saying that they're trying to put up whatever the structure for mediation, and she's part of that process. And I said, please keep mediation away from the court system. It hasn't done us any good. So please do that. I was trying to push that concept there. So let's see, because whenever, like I said, any country starts looking at other countries and what is happening there, but the deeper aspect of it, how it's impacting that country, and mediation. For me, it's the mediation and the mediators. How is it impacting them? Sometimes people lose sight of that. So I was telling her that, let's see. Of course, she's part of the process. What happens? Because it's easy to pick up a law. Because thing is that we have what we have the Civil Procedure Code. So Pakistan and India have the same civil procedure code, which was given to us by the British in 1908. Can you imagine? We're living in 2022. And we use that. That is where the colonization aspect, I keep repeating this. So there were some amendments made in that in India and there also. So I think a similar pattern keeps following. Okay, India is doing that or whatever. So I just felt that that should not happen. But again, I'm taking you there. I should not take you that back here. Kuwait, Nuha from Kuwait.
Nuha, she was Nuha at that time. She was spending some time in the US, but she was going back. She had a lovely family. I'm going to talk about her as a person because her smile shines when she enters the room. She's an inspiration because in her country they have the tribes play a big important role in the society. So she told us a lot about that, about how tribal customs work. We don't have that in our country, so it was a lot of important information.
No, but this part of it, how the traditional method of how mediation takes place, there, of course, you have certain parts of, I mean, Greece also, where those older systems are still there. I don't know where there was Christian in that symposium, Crete. He was working in Crete. I think he had done some research there, and how it happens in those traditional societies. So there is.
It happened mostly in the past. It still does, but it's quite limited in the rest of Greece, at least. So we have it as a tradition, but it's fading away, I would say.
Should it or should it not, Eleni?
It shouldn't. It doesn't have to do with the tradition itself. It has to do with the fact that most people move to bigger cities. So there are fewer people in the rural areas. It has nothing to do with the tradition itself. There are less people in the rural areas.
Should that also happen or not? I think we need a reverse thing now that urbanization hasn't really helped us that much. I think that part of it is another process. Because I keep talking about this aspect of urbanization, how that has affected dispute resolution, and in terms of mediation also, the way the society has got structured, and individualistic societies and nuclear families, that social structure which has changed due to urbanization, that has also affected mediation, because a lot of these aspects which were part of families and communities got lost out because of that.
So, yeah, and I don't think it's getting lost. I think we need to adapt to the new conditions, because the concept of the family is changing. And in many big cities, your family is your friends, not your family from your place of origin. So we need to create new customs, and we need to incorporate mediation in these new customs. It's changing fast, and technology is a catalyst towards this change. We will adapt. I'm positive we will adapt.
Yeah, I'm sure we find our ways to do it. And so Noha's smile was very nice. I can't find Noha's picture anywhere because I don't know whether she's on LinkedIn or not. So I don't have that connection. But then there was, how do you pronounce it, from Nigeria? You have to tell. I won't pronounce.
Ugo.
Okay, so that's simple. I was going to pronounce the entire name, but
yeah.
How do you pronounce that name?
Yeah. We call her Ugo Cinielu, I think. But I've always called her Ugo. As we say, my sister from another mother. We spent so much time together. Actually, we were talking together yesterday, and that's another positive thing of this fellow. I would never have such a close Nigerian friend if it hadn't been for the fellowship. We did many activities together. We even lived together in the Bay Area. Yeah, to me, she's a sister.
So we have to get her on the show also. Please tell her that she has to be. I think I did send her a message. I haven't got a reply from her. So I think we need to get her on the show also. Yes. And then there is from Albania, Merita.
Yeah, Merita Balla.
But before that, what is Ugo doing in terms of mediation?
Ugo is, she's teaching at the university, and she's trying to bring mediation into legal education. and help the students know the process at an early stage. So she's a scholar, she's an academic, and she's working a lot with students.
That's nice. Okay. And then you were telling us about Merita.
Merita is a neighbor. She's from Albania. And since I have Greek, half Cypriot, I spent a lot of time in Greece, and culturally we're very, very close. So I guess we have similar customs. She's so polite, and she, every time you talk with Merita, she makes you feel calm and peaceful.
That's what's required. That's exactly what's required.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the mediation in Albania, is it taking off? Is it happening?
To be honest, I haven't followed that, so I cannot tell you with certainty if it has changed in the past few years or not.
I'll have to ask her. That's what.
Yeah, you'll have to ask Merita. She'll be the person to do that.
Okay, the next on the list is Eleni. Do you know Eleni?
No, haven't heard of her.
Please tell us about Eleni. Yes, that's the important one. Please.
Okay, so as I said, Eleni is a very positive person. She's an incurable optimistic, and her friends don't like that. Sometimes they tell me you're too optimistic. I'm a former musician, as I said, and I try to be a mediator as a person, not just as a professional.
Don't say former musician. You are a musician. It's just that instrument is not there right now with you. Otherwise, you would have been a musician right now. So.
Okay.
So, and at heart, are you a mediator at heart, a musician at heart? Are you just optimist at heart? You're all that at heart. So
yeah.
Great. I'm sure there's lots more, but okay, we have another discussion on that. Adi, of course, you know Adi.
Yeah, of course, I know Adi. I had the pleasure of meeting Adi way before the fellowship. So when I started my career, Adi was a guest international trainer. I was an assistant back then, and I learned a lot from him. Not just Adi, as you know, is a mediator at heart. He's an amazing person, very generous in sharing all his knowledge, and I was lucky enough to see him and meet him at the beginning of my career.
No, he's been really nice because I have a show called In Conversation, The Beautiful Mind. So he's been on that, and of course he's been on Mediator Experiences also, and in the symposium also. It's such a nice person to talk to. It's such a nice conversation with him. It's really nice. Then, but are you doing work with that ADR Center?
Yes, I'm also part of ADR Center Global. I represent Cyprus, and we often have meetings and other joint projects with ADR Center Global.
Was one person from that, Leonardo, I've not been able to get it. I think he's too busy promoting.
Yes, he's
opt-out mediation all over the world, I think.
Yeah, he's promoting mediation all over the world. He's teaching a lot. He's also has his mediations and the mediation center in Italy. So yeah, it's true. He's quite busy.
Yeah. Then Prachi was also on the show.
Yeah, I know. I saw her. I
sent you that. Yeah, I sent you that message also. She had such nice things to say about you.
Yes, Prachi was the first person I met in San Francisco. We went out and we laughed a lot. You mentioned a lot colonization, and Cyprus was also part of the Commonwealth, and it was under the British until the 1950s as well. So it was when I realized that we have so many things in common, even though we're really, really far apart. And Prachi is very motivated in promoting mediation, and she and her father are doing a great work.
Well, let me also tell you at the same time that there are new people who've joined in. Patrick is in the US. US is just waking up. So Patrick has just woken up. So hi, Patrick. Then there's Atman. He's in Morocco. So with him in that symposium, I had someone who could translate. He was speaking French, so he would translate it to French. But he can speak. But I think a lot of people have a hesitation. But I called him for some other meeting also. So we had a conversation. But yes, if you have someone to translate, even better. So anything on Prachi, anything else, so that I can tell her that, look, she had this to say about you. this is what people did in New York or in San Francisco. Some interesting experience in San Francisco, some interesting thing that you people did together.
All together, we went to many dinners. We ate a lot. I remember that wherever we were talking and discussing, and we couldn't get enough of each other because we were learning so many things, and we were realizing that no matter what the differences we have in different systems, and we all shared the same concerns and the same worries and the same dreams to promote mediation all around the world.
Let's say these countries, I mean, before that, had you met someone from Pakistan or India or Nigeria?
No,
had you interacted?
No, I hadn't met anyone from most of these countries. Well, I had met a few people in the UK when I was doing my master's and during my travels, but not as closely as I met my co-fellows.
But in your mind, I mean, did you have a certain impression of what an Indian is? Or
no,
a Pakistani
not really.
Or anything?
Not really, no. I spent a lot of time abroad, and I've seen people from all around the world. So no, I did not have any certain stereotype in mind.
Yeah, because from the Indian perspective, actually, the stereotype is a difficult thing to have when you have 1.3 billion people.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. The only issue is that and some of my students have that issue as well. I accompanied many times university student teams in different competitions in the past, and they were always worried about English accents. So will I be able to understand someone who's from another part of the world and speaks English? And I was always telling them that people from the other side of the world, they will have the same worries about you.
Exactly.
And this was a concern, the accents. But the more you spend time with people around the world, I guess you learn to understand them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, if you're putting that little extra effort, if you want to understand the person, you will. And if you say, no, I don't want to, I mean, in the sense, I can't understand what this person says, whatever the person says, you'll just, okay, this is not saying it the way I would want them to say it. Yeah. So then there is Carolina from Spain.
Carolina, yes, I met first time Carolina in New York, where she was finishing her LLM in Colombia, if I'm not mistaken. Carolina had a great access to the community in Spain, and her vision was to bring mediation closer to the community also. She was also a brilliant legal mind. She was a lawyer, so she worked in the corporate field in Spain, and then she moved in the corporate field in the US. She was working at an in-house legal counsel by that time. So she was looking into this, into how to bring mediation into a company as well.
I think, but where in Spain is she based?
I'm sorry?
Where in Spain is she based?
I don't remember the city.
Okay. And then what do we have? Then we have Kennedy from Kenya.
Yes, Kennedy Odhiambo, if I'm pronouncing it well. So he was doing him and Jody were doing their master's degree in Pepperdine at the time. So they already knew the US more than we did. He was in Kenya. He already had a role and a position in an organization. I think it was a governmental organization, but I'm not 100% sure. So he was looking into the, how can we call that? Into incorporating mediation from a government perspective, I would say.
Okay, within the government kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think that we need to have that discussion, that how can actually mediation be used by the government in their disputes. But that is really something which is a little challenging. Also, I can understand from the government perspective that when you have a dispute with a private party, to bring in mediation where there's discretion given to the bureaucrat to settle something, then corruption and other issues that might come up in that connection. How do you be able to get over that? Because in India, the government is the biggest litigant. So if there can be some system put out where the government can actually mediate their matters, a lot of matters can get out from the courts. But again,
that's not exactly what Kennedy did, but in general, I agree. And this is a hot topic in Europe as well. In the whole European Union, we're discussing that, whether government disputes can go to mediation.
Yeah, because some kind of system is made out where at least the bureaucrat doesn't have to face anything because of the settlement done. Because if you're going to question the bureaucrat at some point of time, any government official at any point of time saying that why did you get into this settlement, they're never going to get into a settlement. So I was thinking that maybe you can have one body which is created. Maybe you could have, okay, maybe there you can get the judiciary in, because retired judges, let them not be mediators, let them be part of that organization, and settlement agreements can be sent there, and maybe a time given, okay, 30 days or 60 days. If they don't reply to it, the settlement is done, so that at least from their perspective, they can have a look at it. It seems fair or doesn't seem fair. Maybe, I don't know how it can be worked. I'm thinking maybe something there can happen. But you have to do it, but also you have to protect the government official also. They're not going to stick their neck out if there is any risk for them. I don't think they'll do that.
We'll see.
Yeah. No, you'll tell us about how you are looking at it. But then there's Katarzyna. Katarzyna was also, of course, she's been part of my shows.
From Poland. Katarzyna has identified a need that we have as mediators to take care of ourselves as well, not just of our parties. And she was focused on that, which is a very important aspect, self-care of a mediator.
Yeah, I think that whole mindfulness and everything that she's working on. And it's always a pleasure speaking to her. She has these nice ideas and everything.
Yeah, and I knew Katarzyna before the fellowship as well. We met many times at the ICC mediation competition in Paris. So I knew her before that. I knew about her work and what she has done in Poland, etc. So it was nice to meet her again in the US.
But now I think she's been wanting to do things outside Poland. I think they should.
Yes, that's right. That's right. From what I know from her as well.
Yeah. Then there is Jody.
Yeah, Jody from Hong Kong. Jody was also, she did her master's in Pepperdine. She has a very successful career in Hong Kong. She's in many high prestigious organizations related to mediation. She's a person who values a lot education, from what I know from her and her continuous development, and also from her kids who were also excelling in different universities around the world.
Because I have to fix a time with her. Haven't been able to do that. Let's see, because she has to come on the show for sure. But when that is going to happen, I have to see. Then there is Pranjal.
Yeah, Pranjal, what he does is very inspiring because he started at a very young age and he did something that only a young person could do. He tried to combine technology with mediation, and he was trying to find the solution for countries where high numbers are a big problem. So I haven't followed his work after the fellowship, but the way he was thinking was very, very promising.
No, they've done a very good job here. What they've set up, their platform that they've set up, a lot of matters. Large numbers of matters from courts have been settled through this. There's a process. We have a certain law which it's called, it's in Hindi, but it means people's court. So you can actually settle disputes there, and the matters are sent there by the courts. And There was one particular, for a particular high court in India that set it up. On one day, I think there were 18,000 matters which were settled.
Wow.
On one day.
So we need more brilliant young minds like Pranjal's who can figure out creative solutions through all these problems.
Yeah, so they're looking at those large numbers, and I think that's where technology, part of it, can really be used in countries like ours, where people might not be able to even like that access. I mean, that access to even courts, that part of it is difficult. Like I told you, the way distances are, and then the time factor of going through the process. I mean, I think what he's done is really, I think they're really good. I think because he's been on the show also. Then he has a co-founder who was on that symposium, Akshata. I really like their thoughts on how they went about it. But if you have a bit of time, let me just tell you what all is happening or has happened in February. I like to do that.
Yeah, so, sure, of course.
Okay, good. Because I sometimes feel that I'm just talking about myself, which I don't like to do normally, but I want to put it out. So what all is happening in February? Olga? Yes. Then this is what the one lecture that I was telling you about. Collaborative poetry and climate change mediation. This is that Vision 2026 that this was on heart. I mean, do try and see this if you can. This whole constellation thing that they're talking about, and in Brazil, they're working on that, and how the courts have also used that constellation methodology in the court system. I'm still figuring it out. So we have another discussion in March with her. So I've already have various conversations, but on this aspect, she'll maybe elaborate and maybe show us how it is done. So in March, we have that session coming up again. Then Constantia, I have to repeat this, that Constantia in the symposium said, in my lifetime, I want to see I can practice as a full-time mediator. So whenever I talk about it, for me, that's the target. Can and has Constantia been able to practice as a full-time mediator? Then I'm doing something. So this is what I felt was an interesting part. It was a very nice discussion on Mahatma Gandhi and mediation, because that aspect of the humanistic approach to mediation, those aspects also need to be discussed. I mean, that's like I told you, there's that whole institutional, that commercial mediation. That's one part. Yes, that's happening, but numbers are very small there. And then the larger population we can use it, and how all these aspects. There also that connection to heart, soul, and spirituality. I'm putting it there. But I'll tell you about, after I finish this, I'll tell you about this one person in the symposium from Indonesia, how the heart part of it plays a role. She told me about it. It was very interesting. Then Elena, she's in Siberia. And of course, she had such a nice little message that she sent me on New Year's, that I put it out on social media. It was such a nice clip. Maybe I'll show it to you after this. It was really nice. Then Victor was there. Yeah, I told you he was just send that comment also. So it was a very nice conversation. And I don't know whether you know about what the work that they're doing in. Okay, this one we'll talk about. I don't know her too well. She hasn't been able to tell us much about herself. We have to get into her. We have to get to know her a little better. Yes. But in Kenya, they've done a lot of work in terms of the traditional, in communities, the mediation that happens, strengthening that. And there is a person called James Mangereri who's working a lot on that part, which is also something that can be used in other parts of the world, which I think that. Then we have Isaac from Ghana, enthusiastic person there. Then this talking books, because some of us don't read them. I have to put it out because I don't read them. I have to keep saying that. So this should be interesting. The concept that they're talking about, I think, because in terms of the larger social change, on those aspects of it, and how neutrality, whether that's something that should be there, not be there, well, it'll be interesting discussion. I mean, this should be interesting. But if you want to, if you want to come in for the discussion, you can always come in for the discussion. This person, maybe you know, maybe you don't know. I can't.
That's Danny. We're all grateful to what he has done for us, and how generous he is, and the family he has created around for the Weinstein JAMS Fellows. It's really inspiring to see how accomplished mediators are so generous, and they devote so much time and energy and money to help spread mediation across the globe.
No, actually, he's done a very good thing for me also. He's selected such wonderful people all over the world that because look, I was telling him also in that this is part two. Part one, I don't know whether you saw part one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was telling him that look, the people that we put out, they're ambassadors of mediation, and when you're promoting mediation all over the world, you have to make sure that the right people are out there. Well, otherwise, okay, I mean, first of all, again, let me not get into it, but the fact of the court system, because of the fact that money is not part of it, so the people who come into it, whether they have that same kind of passion, because some of them have a lot of passion and they're doing it only because of that, but otherwise, whether the right message about mediation is going out or not, we can't really say. So that's why I think he's done a really good job to put these people out there, I think. And then, okay, last day of the month, birthdays of mediators in that month. So I have to put it out, Eleni, because I'm telling you, no one knows what all I do keep doing, because obviously you can't all the posts and all. Who has time to look at social media posts? But I have to do what I have to do.
You're doing a great job, and I hope that your videos reach everybody in every little corner of the world, and they get inspired to promote this way of life and this way of work that is called mediation. I've seen when I started about a decade ago, mediation was not that known. There weren't that many initiatives all around the world. And in the past decade, the situation has changed. And I hope that with all the work of all my fellows and my colleagues around the world, and what you do, in the next decade, we will see miracles.
Wow, good. Thank you very much for at least appreciating what I'm doing. But the main thing is that you are going to inspire people. I have this platform, I have people, but it's people like you who are required to inspire people. And that's the reason for these conversations, because what you bring in, the passion that you bring in, and what you want to do, I think that can and should go out. So, but I was telling you about when you said about the project. I mean, in terms of what JAMS Fellowship is doing, what I looked at, and when I only got to know about the fellowship because of Migle, who's a fellow this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just felt that, look, okay, they're doing a very good thing. At least 10 people in the year they do put out, but there are so many people out there in the world who want to do some good things. So part of that vision 2026, I put out a message that anyone who has a project in mind to promote mediation, to develop mediation, write to me. Let me put people who want to fund it, or people who just want to give their time or mentorship or whatever. Let's put them together. And I specifically, website also, I said, I'm not the middleman in terms of money. I mean, that is between them. But at least, look, and there are people in various parts of the world, like this, like in Siberia. I mean, this person, of course, Elena, not Elena, but there's Elizabeth there, who actually has a good thought on creating a mediation center there. So now, because obviously there is a lot of experience, say, in the US. So I connected her with someone there who's been part of Mediation Center for years. So that expertise is available and people want to help.
Mm-hmm.
Why not just put them together? So that's
a great initiative, bringing people who want to help and people who need the help together. And I think it will be easy to find people who want to help, at least as mentors, because mediators are very generous people.
Exactly.
Yeah. So congrats. It's a very interesting project, and I'll keep it in mind in case I can suggest anybody for both sides.
Yes, and you also have to mentor people. You also have to help them whenever you get time.
I would be happy to help anyone who wants to get some advice or some tip on things I already know. Please don't hesitate to send me a message on LinkedIn. I would be happy to reply for help.
And that's what I keep saying, that the mediators are such nice people, and that is why we should not be taken for a ride in terms of when it comes down to the court system. But I want to play Elena's message, that New Year message. I want to play it to you because I really liked it, and I felt that you just suddenly feel you're doing something there. I mean, someone sitting in Siberia sending such a nice message. you feel that, yes, because otherwise, look, I keep doing this. I don't know who's watching, whatever. I mean, I get to know that suddenly I find out someone sitting somewhere in the corner of the world is watching you, and in some way, let's not say inspired. I'm not going to be inspiring so much, but at least there. So let's just put it there.
Dear Vikram, Happy New Year. I want to wish you and your family health and success. And so I say you thank you because I meeting with you, and it's very wonderful meeting for me, very important meeting for me, meeting with you. You make a very great job for Mediator or for all the world. Dear Vikram, Happy New Year from Russia with love.
Oh, from Russia with love, and that doing things for mediators around the world. I mean, just to hear that, I mean, it's such a nice thing. And on New Year's, you get such a nice message, and I just felt good.
It's very nice and kind of her. We haven't met, we have never met. And it's also nice to see the snow, actually, because in many parts of the world, we don't have snow in the New Year's Eve.
This year, I think in parts of India also, lots of snow we got. So I think whatever, over time anyway, climate varies and things go back to what it was. I think 50, 100 years back also, you got snow with up till March also in some parts. This year, I think that's happening in some parts of India. So that was good. So Eleni, some concluding kind of message for the world of mediation, for mediators, inspiring messages for people who are out there and should have the mediator mindset and are not part of the mediation world.
What I could say, don't be afraid to try it. It takes just once to fall in love with that process. So try it, whether you want to try it from the side of the mediator or the side of the party. If you have a conflict that bothers you at the moment, and trust the process.
Perfect. Anything more? Anything else? This is your concluding thing, whatever. That's it. Whatever.
No, I just want to thank you again for this very interesting chat. And I learned a lot about India that I did not know. Once again, I realized that in each country we have different numbers and different impediments to face. And I always learn from colleagues from different countries. So thank you for that conversation as well.
And now, Eleni, what you have to do is you have to see a city like mine, say Delhi, where you have 25 million people. I plan to. 25 million people. Don't get scared with the number of people around you, okay? So
I plan to. I want to visit Prachi, and I want to visit many of my other colleagues in India. So it's going to be one of my next trips for sure.
You'll have to make lots of trips because the diverse country that we have, and of course, a big country, and all kinds of things. I mean, you have everything there. You have cold deserts, you have hot deserts, you have mountains, beaches, every forest, everything. I mean, it's such a large country. So
it's 1.3 billion, and yeah.
Exactly. So thank you very much, Eleni.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful talking to you, and of course, we are going to have lots of such conversations, and you are going to be part of the activities that I'm doing, and we'll definitely